Welcome to the Soulful Surgeon Podcast with Dr. Lisa Hunsicker, a sanctuary for healthcare workers. In this space, we honor your stories, your struggles, and your triumphs. Here, you are more than your role. You are seen, heard, and celebrated. Join me as we explore conversations that nourish the heart, elevate the mind, and remind us why we chose the path of healing. This is your time. This is your place. This is the Soulful Surgeon Podcast. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Soulful Surgeon Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Lisa Hunsicker. This is the place where healthcare workers come to be seen and heard. And today I want to talk a little bit about fear. And this is a topic we touched on earlier with Janelle Barrett and talking about the SCARF model that really our brain gets hijacked. But people are wondering, like, well, what fear could doctors and nurses and all the healthcare practitioners be dealing with? What isn't? And fear, I like to say, is the terrorist of healthcare. So when we have something that stimulates us and it triggers our brain, all of a sudden we get hijacked. And like we talked about before, the SCARF model, as you recall, is standing for status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. And when these really important things get jeopardized, then this is a real problem for us. And it takes us out of our executive functioning in our prefrontal cortex, and it throws us into our primal brain where we feel like we're being chased by the saber-toothed tiger. And what a lot of people don't realize is that fear is our everyday companion in medicine. It's like we wake up in the morning and we put our fear underwear on and we go all day, and then it doesn't come off until we go to bed at night. And there's so many layers to this. Now, the first thing is, of course, when we deal with our patients, we want our patients to do well. And no matter what we do, you can do all the right things, and it still isn't going to matter. And certainly, trauma is a good example of this. Many patients come to the emergency department with some sort of trauma, having a gunshot wound, being stabbed, falling on their bike, falling during hiking, car accidents. And some of those events, no matter what we do, the outcome is never going to change. And in many cases, a lot of our patients don't even make it to the emergency department because they really never survived and never made it off scene. And so they don't get transported to us. But still, there's patients who come to us that despite what we're doing isn't ever going to get any better. And this is just a process to which the body cannot recover from. And no matter what we do, it's still not going to make a difference. And I think that's something that many times that we're in fear of just not being able to do enough, being good enough, doing the procedures enough, because their condition, it's never going to be recoverable. And so for us, that really is just an awful feeling.
Okay.
The other thing that is going to go with that is that sometimes when you're doing your best, bad outcomes occur. And again, that's because of the disease process that no matter what we do is never going to be effective enough to overcome whatever this disease process is. And I think that we are so ingrained in our brains that we're going to do this well, and we're going to fix, everything is fixed. We're the human doings. We're going to fix everybody. The problem is that it can't be fixed, and we take that on, and that becomes part of our, I don't know, it's just like this ingrained self-criticism that we can't seem to get away from. And really, all of this, no matter what we do, and no matter how good a job that we do, the outcome may still be bad. But the other layer that is still pervasive is malpractice. And it's very interesting. The cost of medicine is incredible due to the mere presence of malpractice. In so many cases, what we're doing, we do what we call CYA medicine, and the public probably doesn't understand this, but we have to do things that really don't align with what we feel is necessary. And we're influenced by two things. One is, are we going to get sued? So we have to do the things to prove that certain things don't exist, because someday we might be sitting in a courtroom trying to defend our decision making. And this really, it doesn't benefit the patient in any way. It's simply becoming part of a legal document that has nothing to do with patient care. It has to do with, well, in 5 years from now, and I'm sitting in a courtroom trying to defend myself, I can say with certainty that this was not the case because I ordered this. And really, this wasted a lot of time and energy and delayed patient care, but this is what I needed to do, because ultimately, whether the patient has a good outcome or not, if the patient wants to sue us, we still have to go and defend ourselves. And we defend ourselves all day long. We defend in our practice, in our notes, in our electronic medical record, in what we say to patients and how we say to patients and how we consent to patients. All these things is for protecting ourselves out of the fear of malpractice. And I can't think of pretty much anything that I do in medicine that we're not consciously having a thought process of how this can be used in a court of law against us. And one of the things that we keep running into is this, and then the other thing is insurance companies, right? I know for me, I have patients who have an issue, but they need an MRI. And the problem is that there's all these probes that the insurance companies are requiring us to do before we get to that. When if we had just gotten the MRI, we could have gotten to the answer way faster. We would not have wasted a bunch of time, energy, and money. And by the way, my new patient who's trying to be diagnosed can't get an appointment because she's blocked out from all these CYA tests and all these insurance-based tests that we can't even get to the tests that we need to. And people who need to get in quickly can't, because we're all stuck in the cog of all of this. So the other thing I think people tend to forget about is HIPAA. And so the issue is online. 20 years ago, this really was not an issue. We didn't have social media. We didn't have all of these Google reviews and all of the site reviews. And so now, with the evolution of the internet, we certainly can go on any site and we can review anyone and say anything about anyone. And this cyberbullying happens. And it's interesting, we protect our children from that. But in general, most adults aren't protected and most businesses are not protected. An interesting thing, however, is if I go to a hotel and I have a good or bad experience, I can put a review on their site and then talk about whatever's good or bad or whatever I feel like I want to say about this company. What most people don't do is they don't call the company and say, hey, here was the thing. I had this good thing or this bad thing, and I really wanted you to know. So it becomes public forum. And in the case of the hotel company can turn around and respond to me and say, well, thank you so much. That was great. Or, you were the crazy person who was throwing the party and you were up all night and the police were called and you can't really write this. And they can even talk to the reviewing platform and ask to have it removed. However, because we are physicians and healthcare providers, we are bound by HIPAA, which means we cannot even acknowledge knowing a person, let alone giving any information. And what's interesting is that patients they have that choice. They can divulge whatever they want about themselves, and they can put whatever information out there, and they can choose to not have privacy regarding whatever their health issue is. However, as a healthcare provider, we're federally mandated to have a HIPAA protection and privacy and not even speak about that patient. We can't talk about that patient. We can't acknowledge that patient in any public way. And so I could be a crazy person who comes in, and I've had people who write terrible reviews about our practice who actually have never even been there. I've had staff members who have been let go for one reason or another, and their friends get on and they write and put all kinds of things. But I can be attacked personally and professionally and have zero way to defend myself. And so this is another fear that we're dealing with all the time. And this happens actually in the settings of malpractice. And I've actually seen this in colleagues who have been involved in lawsuits. And even when the suits have been settled, people still can go on and write all kinds of terrible things to which you are legally prohibited from even acknowledging or responding to. And, the standard answer, as you see on many of these sites, is, thank you so much for your comments. Feel free to call the office to discuss this further, so that we're acknowledging that someone put a post, but we're not acknowledging who they are, what they have to say, and what's going on. But you can be publicly assassinated and you can't even respond. And I don't know of any other particular area where people can assault other people publicly and have no recourse. So, you think about an average day where you wake up and, for me, I get up and I go to the OR and then maybe do clinic. I also have kids. So, raising a family, there's certainly fear about, is everyone safe? Is everyone doing what they're supposed to? But when we get up and we go to work, there's just fear, fear, fear. And I'm wondering how it is that we're supposed to navigate this entire process when our brain is hijacked all the time. And pretty much what ends up happening is you have to disconnect from your own feelings so that you can continue to move forward. And so I'm not sure that this is really a great situation. I can completely disconnect and be a zombie. And then I have terrible interactions with patients. I have terrible interactions with my staff and my colleagues because I'm really not connected to anything, but I'm just trudging through and I'm getting everything done that needs to be done. And maybe it's not even that great because I am completely disconnected, or I'm feeling all these feelings. And basically, how do you do that when, as we saw with Janelle Bennett, you get hijacked and your amygdala is running rampant in your head and your whole prefrontal cortex is turned off and your ability to make good decisions, you're just running amok. And I think that's something that we really have to address because this is going to be a long-term chronic problem for us. And I feel like we're going to end up in a place of burnout no matter what we do. And when I hear about, we have to address burnout and just take a hot bath or go for a walk or, meditate, and all those things are very good. The problem is that we're just putting Band-Aids on the symptoms and we're not actually treating the cause of the burnout, which is we're afraid of not getting paid. We're afraid of not making enough money to cover our business expenses and keep our doors open if you're in private practice. You're afraid of hurting patients. You're afraid of making the wrong decision. You're afraid of doing your best, and no matter what you do, you're going to get sued. You're afraid that you're going to lose your home and your car and your family's assets due to a malpractice. And you're afraid that you're going to be publicly assassinated on a regular basis. And so when we think about all the different jobs that people do, how many people, when you go to work, say, well, these are all the things that are on my checklist that are going to occur today. What job do you know that this is basically part and parcel for the whole job? And I think this is something that we need to talk about, because when we're talking about burnout, all of these remedies are trying to teach us how to cope with all of these things rather than getting to the source, which is fear. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. I want you to think about in your day. And I would love it if you would put in the comments some of the things that you deal with on a regular basis that it really upsets you, makes you very nervous, and is fear-provoking for you. And maybe how you deal with it, because I think every one of us would love to hear of some other approaches that might be helpful. So please put that down in the comments. And I want everyone to really think about, this is a process that we do every day. And again, when you think about it, what's our most valued thing is vacation, right? Because on vacation, we get to step out of that role and we have some period of time where we're not responsible for everyone's well-being and legally liable for everyone's well-being. We simply get to be. And so I want you to think about how you feel on vacation, how you feel at work, and how do we get to the place where maybe, just maybe, we can feel like we are on vacation, feel emotionally safe at work. And I think that's what we have to work on. So put your suggestions down there. If you have any other issues you want to talk about, contact me at soulfulsurgeon.com. I'd be happy to talk to you about this. I'd love for you to come on the podcast if you have any other suggestions as well. So take care, and let's see what we can do with this. Thank you for joining me on the Soulful Surgeon Podcast. I hope today's conversation offered you reflection, encouragement, and a reminder that you are not alone on this journey. If this episode spoke to your heart, please share it with someone who might need it as well. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a moment of connecting with healthcare workers all over. You can find us on the web at soulfulsurgeon.com. You can find us on Instagram at Soulful Surgeon. And you can find us on LinkedIn at Lisa Hunsicker, MD. Until next time, take care of yourself the way you care for others. And remember, your story matters here.